Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim wa sallallahu ala Sayyidina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi wa sallam. Welcome to the Travelers Podcast. I'm Brother Ali. I'm very grateful that you're here. This is a conversation that I've been avoiding, honestly, for several years. This is a conversation that's really important. I think as we learn about ourselves, one of the things we know about the human condition is that the things that are best for us a lot of times are things that we don't want to do. Then the things that are really sweet and yummy to us, a lot of times those are the things that are worst for us. It's part of the human condition. And this is a conversation that I've been avoiding. And then once I had it, I felt this tremendous relief, this tremendous just sense of gratitude for being able to have had this conversation with somebody that I care about so much. This is a conversation that I think is really good for anybody dealing with art and culture, anybody that has a movement that you care about, anybody that has a community that's dear to you, especially if that community isn't part of the mainstream. And also it really gets to the heart of just having open dialogue about art and about what it means to us. I'm talking to Ramy Youssef, and Ramy is a comedian. He's hilarious. He is a award-winning creator of television series. And he's somebody that I love a lot. So I met Ramy when he was on the come up. And in the Muslim, kind of sphere of culture and entertainment, there are not a lot of us that are, practicing, openly identifying Muslims. There have always been Muslims and people that are associated with Islam, especially MCs within hip hop. But outside of that, there are not a lot of us that really are openly identified as Muslim. And so when there are those people, we celebrate them. People like Muhammad Ali, for example, is probably the greatest that we have. But several years ago, I met a group of comedians. Their OG and my OG is Preacher Moss, who we had on this program. And people like Azhar Usman, who was also on this show, Mo Amr, who was also on this show. But a group of young comedians that were working their way up. And among them were my dear beloved friend, Hassan Minhaj, who's also been on this show, and Ramy Youssef. And particularly, I met Hassan and Ramy when they were like really young dudes. And I was one of the few Muslims who was established, and I was touring and playing all the big festivals and being written about in Source Magazine and Rolling Stone and all that kind of stuff. And I was doing late night TV shows and all those kind of things. So in that sense, I was somebody that they looked up to, but also they, I think, wanted to make art, and Ramy in particular wanted to make art that was really expressive, not only of his life, but also he had very deep and real feelings and emotions and experiences that he wanted to capture in art, both for his own sake, but also for people who were sharing those feelings that before he expressed them didn't have a voice. And that's something that I have done. And I've really hinged my career and my creative work around that very idea and that calling, really. That like there are things in me that are secrets because of the fact that they're not spoken about publicly very often. And if I'm able to voice those things, not only is that really beneficial to me, but it also really gives life to people who also are having either an identical or even an adjacent similar experience. There's something that really is so important to our hearts and our lives when somebody gives voice to an experience that we're having, because we just feel alone in it. So when Ramy was coming up, he's somebody that I just fell in love with. This guy. It's impossible to not fall in love with him. He's one of the most likable people, and there's a charm to it, you know what I'm saying, that he's able to put on, but it's also deeply true. It really springs forth from the well of his humanity, his heart. He's a very deeply just well-meaning, well-intentioned, beautiful human being. He's also human, you know what I'm saying? And so when he was working on his show, we were talking about not the details of it, but we were really talking about the intention of it, on the level of intention. And he's like, man, I'm going to be saying stuff that Muslims aren't going to like. And I wasn't sure exactly what he meant, and it didn't matter to me. He was like, man, I'm saying things that I'm embarrassed to say about myself. I'm revealing things that I don't know how my family is going to feel about it. And I don't know how our religious community is going to feel about it. I don't know as an Arab American, what's this going to mean? And I was just talking to him, mostly through voice notes, but about what it's meant for me. And just saying like, man, brother, it's okay, man. It's what you're going to do is going to be important for yourself. And as long as you're as honest as you can possibly be, and as long as you're as sincere as you can possibly be, it's also got to be dope. So if it's, in my rhymes, the rhymes got to be ill. The beats got to be dope. It's got to be delivered at a high level. If you're doing TV, it's got to be riveting television. You know what I'm saying? If you're trying to be funny, it's got to be hilarious. You know what I mean? And those require that we go into some messy places on their own. And so I was part of the process of really talking through the intention of it. And then the show came out, and I didn't like it. I didn't like it because, and the reason that I stuck to, in terms of speaking about it, was that I love Ramy as a person. And I know that he struggles like we all struggle. But I love Ramy, and it was important to me that, like, if this dude that I love is going to be on TV, that you have to see why he's lovable. And I didn't feel like that was necessarily showing up in the show. You know what I'm saying? It's okay for him to be messy, but Ramy, the person, Ramy Youssef, is not just messy. He makes messes like we all make messes. But he makes those messes because of something really sincere and sweet inside of him. And he also is a beautiful, generous person that has touched my life and heart. Like, part of who I am is because of how beautiful this guy is. And watching him become successful has been a beautiful journey, to see. Because I know how hard he works, and I know what it means to him, and I know what he's risking to do it. But also, he's talking about a religion that I embraced that saved my life, and that saved the lives of so many people like me who converted to this religion. And I converted to Islam, and I converted specifically into Black American urban Islam. The community of Imam Wadathuddin Muhammad, that was born out of the Nation of Islam, is directly related to the 5% Nation of Gods and Earths, is directly related to the Moorish Science Temple of America, is directly related to all these different iterations of Islam that don't see eye to eye on everything. But for us, Islam is a lifeline. And then since then, I've met and I actually helped to usher a lot of European American people, Caucasian white Americans, and people from the West also into Islam. And so for us, Islam is a lifeline. For us, Islam is the medicine. For us, Islam is the last bus home. For us, Islam is the future, or there is no future for us individually and collectively. This is how we feel about it. And I talk about it with the love and admiration that I have, but I also felt like Islam isn't being shown for the beauty that it is in this show. But I never said that to Ramy. And it's because of the fact that I have the sense that he looks up to me, or at least he did at one point. Maybe he still does. But also, he's on a journey that I don't want to mess up. I don't want to be a voice in his head saying, yeah, man, I don't know about this. I know he's inundated with those voices, and I didn't want to be that. I didn't want to be part of the chorus of telling him that something's wrong with what he's doing. There's also an element of just the conversation of representation, and what I've seen over and over is that Black Americans, Black folks in America, from the very beginning, it's like, white supremacy, the project of white supremacy is really hinged on like, everybody's got to be below us. And so if Black people are going to show up in TV and movies and music, you got to be bucking your eyes and scratching, and you have to be less than human. And then there's all these different phases and stages of what representation has meant. And so for me, I don't like to see any marginalized community, especially like people do not know about Islam. Americans don't know a damn thing about Islam, almost nothing. And I would even say nothing. Most of what Americans think they know about Islam, they have deep misconceptions about. And so when Islam shows up, you know, it's like, man, are we going to lower ourselves in our religion so that we can have a seat at the table, so that we can have representation in a way that makes the broader society feel comfortable and feel like, well, yeah, we'll lower ourselves to step into your vision of us. But I did not want to say that stuff to Ramy. And when Ramy came, we recorded this in Philadelphia, and Ramy said, hey, can I come do your podcast? And can I come hang out? So he came to Philly. He drove down from New York, and we sat and did the podcast. And I was saying to him, like, yo, do you want to hang out? I'm doing these shows. There's this brand new, independent Black-owned club called Jester's Castle. I've been invited to be the first musical artist at this new comedy and music venue. You should come by this club, man. I'll get you. I was staying at a really nice hotel. I'm like, yo, I'll get you a room at the same hotel just as a gift, you know what I'm saying, for coming doing the podcast. He drove down. He did the podcast. We ended up talking about his show. And then he got in his car and he drove home. And I realized that I can't confirm, but I think that he knew both that I had reservations, deep reservations about the show Ramy that's on Hulu, and also that the community has these reservations and these feelings. But I hope and I think and I suspect that he knew that he could talk to me about this stuff in a way where I would listen to him. And you got to listen to the conversation to hear the conclusion. But the conclusion made me feel really good. I understand. I came out of it understanding. You know what I'm saying? And so I hope that my brother Ramy came and had this conversation and felt like, and I hope when this comes out, he feels like somebody who has these feelings also heard him and loves him. And as an artist, it's like, man, I'm happy for any artist to be doing what they feel called to do. And I don't feel like I need to say anything about that. But as a Muslim and as his big brother and as somebody that converted to this religion and loves this religion and believes in it with every fiber of my being, there's nothing that I would be associated and identified with more than the religion of Islam. So this is a conversation I avoided, but I'm very grateful to have had. We're brought to you, as always, by the Zakat Foundation, Z-A-K-A-T. Zakat.org is their website, Zakat US on social media. Go and follow them. It's a dope humanitarian organization. They work all over the world. They work with people on the ground. They work with people like human beings. They don't operate and move like a big corporation, even though they're a major global organization. And they supported this show from the very beginning because they understand that this is a human endeavor. It's not a numbers game. And so them supporting conversations like this is them saying that for us to really affect change that allows to show and highlight and promote the dignity of human beings, culture is an extremely important part of it. So we're grateful to Zakat Foundation. Enjoy this episode of the Travelers Podcast. Crazy. We were just trying to figure out how long it's been since we've seen each other.
Dude, I don't know. I miss you so much. It was definitely before COVID, but I can't even place when before it. It's funny. I was thinking about, like, when I was driving over here, even though I couldn't place, like, when we'd seen each other, like, I remember our voice notes a lot.
Yeah.
And there's so many voice notes that you've sent me, especially when we first put out the show. And there were just things you said that actually not only really helped me, but kind of like sat with me and changed how I was thinking about things. And allowed me to move forward in certain ways. You know, like I think, getting your perspective on making stuff while also trying to have it be an offering and something that is an offering of love. I feel like there are so few people that I could talk to about that in a really expansive, nuanced way. And then even putting aside like what felt like a few people, I felt like some of those first big conversations I had with you, which, yeah, I don't even know if I said that to you before, like straight on, but I remember those a lot. You know, I remember a lot of conversations that we've had. Yeah, more than you would realize, like how much I remember them.
SubhanAllah. It's amazing, like how much artists just really need each other. Yeah. You know, and artists and scholars artists and sheikhs need each other too. You know what I mean? That there's just like certain things that happen in our hearts and in our lives that only another artist is going to understand. Yeah. So like Dr. Omar, for example, has said all the time, and like people that are sincere, they don't know how great they are. So he'll be like, I've just been here longer. He's like, but we're the same. We're in this together. And just like, we're not the same. like we're so.
I'll be honest with you, man. You read way more books than I do. And
I mean, just
there's
like,
no way we're the same.
Man. And just like, I'm pretty sure you act on all of your goodness, like all the good things that you think and feel and the good ideas you have. And I'm sure that he's acting on them. You know what I mean?
Yeah, man.
But I do relate to that feeling though. You know what I mean? Because there are artists that have been here longer than me. Yeah. And that's not nothing. Like that matters, but they have a certain experience. Yeah. But then also, and then there are artists that are a little bit closer to the beginning of the journey than I am. But like we are the same. We're just in different places, and we're coming from different perspectives and things like that. But man, we absolutely need each other.
I mean, it's also time logged is a huge thing, right? Because it's like everything's really relative to era and the waves that come before you. So it's like, I feel like art is part action, part reaction, right? So, you know, anything that's fresh or new is still a reaction to what came before it, which was also fresh and new. So, you know, and then there's the part where you are a genuine actor, like kind of proactively putting in your new piece of it and kind of trying to lead it with a sincere energy and a genuine passion. And so even if art looks different from generation to generation, that like active part of like bearing yourself and bringing it forward, you have so much to learn from anyone who's been around longer, right? Because it's like that, again, it's like, even if you're, again, it's like and this is, I think, even more prevalent in music than I think in film, but like in music, it's like, oh yeah, this is the new hot thing, right? And it's like, well, sure, but it's like, it gets to be that in relation to what was before it, right? Which, you know, and that link has always been so clear to me. And so I just think that part of you that's acting from burying yourself and from, you know, putting it all out there, and anyone who's done that knows, yeah, not just how vulnerable it feels, but it's like draining, and it's and there's a lot that comes with it where, yeah, getting to connect with people who've been doing it is essential, I think.
Yeah. And then those people, if they're still alive, you know what I'm saying? There's like something very alive about the moment of like, wow, my heart is still experiencing things. And I don't know if those things are welcome in the world the way that I might want to say it. Like if I explain this exactly as it's happening, exactly as I'm experiencing it, I don't know if that's welcome in the world yet. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. So like Johnny Cash was having those moments all the way up to the end. You know what I mean? And like real great artists, they're still experiencing that. Like I was just hearing Rick Rubin talk about like recording those last Johnny Cash records. Yeah. And and he was just like, man, he didn't like the way his voice sounded. Like he didn't want to do it anymore.
Johnny didn't.
Yeah, because you know, he's used to being like, oh, I'm gonna tone, like, but like he couldn't do that anymore. You know what I'm saying? Wow. And he's like, he didn't think that he still had something. So it was still terrifying, even for one of the baddest dudes of all time, to be like, well, now I sound like I hurt myself today.
And then we're all like, that's the best you've sounded.
And we're just like, man, the producer of this podcast, BK1, he's the one that put me on to like white music, dope white music. I didn't know dope white music. So I met him. And I went to his crib. He's like this white guy who was in college radio. Yeah. And I'm like, I know why I know all this black stuff. Yes. But I went to his crib and he just had all this like jazz music and funk music and all these like black revolutionary books. in the Midwest. And I was like, I know why I need to know this. Why do you know this? You know what I'm saying? So we talked about all this music, and then he started showing me like really dope white music. So cool. Fugazi and all this stuff. So we're driving down the street. he was my DJ for 10 years. So we're driving one time, just me and him, and he's playing this new Johnny Cash record, and especially on that song in particular. And I look over, and tears are just running down his face. And it's Rick Rubin. So I just said, "You're crazy for this one, Rick." And he had to pull the car over, and we just laughed, man. But it's like, man, even somebody like that, even if you've had years of like, yeah, people accepted it in 1970 and people accepted it in 1980, but in 2010 or whatever that was, for him to say, my heart is feeling new things, and my voice sounds, this is still a new, like I'm still a new person. And like, I don't know if this is welcome in the world or not. You know what I mean? To still have to be able to bear yourself like that. Yeah. And so like, even those artists that have been doing it for a long time, if they're still active, then when they meet somebody even that's been doing it less time, it's still like, yeah, so like, what's happening?
What are you nervous about?
Yeah. Or like, how are you figuring this out? How are you exploring and then sharing? And
yeah.
So in a way, it's like, it is ageless.
It is, but it's like, I think it's also, I think it's ageless if the verb of how you do it is similar, because I do think there is this thing that anyone I've really connected with who's a great artist, they are seeking that nervousness, and they're seeking kind of that type of, you know, the difficulty that gives you, the pressure that gives you a diamond, you know, and they don't stop doing that. And it's almost like what's great about them is that they just get better at enduring how gut-wrenching it is. And then there's the other part of it where, you know, art invariably, you know, becomes a business, and then it's like, no, actually what I'm looking for is plug and play, where it's like, I'm just, you know, I found what works, boom, let's do it again, boom, let's do it again, let's print these things, you know, I'm building a business, right? And I really just relate with the first pocket more, and I think anytime you're hanging out with artists who are just continuing to seek that thing regardless of what they've accomplished, like it's that you know, it's like that Sufi saying on our path of like having the memory of a goldfish, right? Where it's just, yeah, I did what? It doesn't even, but now, what about now? You know, and it's like, so someone could sit and like the greatest artists, like their resumes almost, they forget it. They don't even know. They're just like, what? No, but right now, but this could suck.
Yeah.
I'm really nervous. Like, what's going to happen right now? You know, that's my favorite.
Yeah, man. De La Soul is like, finally, like people are starting to recognize, like they, you know what I mean? They just had this moment where they finally got their catalog. After all these years of just being one of the greatest groups of all time. Like this group that's just every single time, like they've never made the same thing twice. They've never rhymed the same way twice. Wow. You know what I'm saying? And when people do that, also you see like what their actual fingerprint of a human is, though. It's like, okay, but you do all these different things, they're so different, but so now I see, because I see you in so many contexts, like when you're married to somebody a long time, it's like I've seen you in so many situations that now I know who you are. It's not just I know who you are in this age and this time and this, so you start seeing who these people are, but then right when all of this stuff happens for them, you know, Dave passed away. Rahimahullah, they're, you know, all three brothers are Muslim, and De La, and they're beautiful, beautiful people. But the two guys had to mourn Dave publicly because it's a major moment for them. It's a major moment for the culture, for the music. You know what I'm saying? That like he literally died a month before their music came, and we all knew that their catalog was coming. We all knew this public fight they had. They never badmouthed anybody, but they were just honest about the fact that it's just like, my God, man. You know what I mean? It like just the how generous that is for these souls. Literally like souls, like De La Soul, like to be in a moment like that, like we've been fighting this moment our whole life, and then our brother dies, and nobody would fault them for just saying like we'll do the celebration later. We're gonna mourn for a while, you know. But to just be on stage, and doing these interviews and everything and performing this music and just saying, thank you, Dave. Thank you, Dave. It's like,
Wow.
man, you know, you see people like that just, their soul is so giving in every moment.
Yeah.
And when their first biggest hit was Me, Myself, and I. And like, they hate that song. And they say before they perform it, they would always say, we hate this song. We hate this song. We hate this song, but you love this song. Cause like they made their first album.
Yeah, yeah.
And they made this like masterpiece. Like this really like cut against the grain masterpiece. Like they came out at the same time as Ice Cube and stuff.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? When Ice Cube is like, no dancing, no smiling, no so-and-so. You know what I'm saying? And they came out and they're just like wearing all these flowers and,
yeah.
you know what I'm saying? They're just like potholes in my Lord. You know what I mean? It was just like, man, this is us, man. And the record label, Tommy Boy, the same people that ended up holding their music forever, they said, you need a hit. There's not a radio. There's no hit here. So they're like, go make a hit. So I think almost defiantly they went and they sampled Parliament Funkadelic.
Yeah.
Knee Deep. Dun, 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 dun. They're just like, whatever, fine. And they just did something super easy and simple. And it was
it was
a hit. It was a huge hit. You know what I mean? And it's the song that everybody's like, when are you gonna do that? And in their mind, they're like, we hate
that.
Yeah, man. You know? And so, you just see these people that have had these long careers and are always willing to do new things and repeat that moment of renewal that like,
yeah.
I don't even know how I feel about what I'm doing. And it's not welcome because nobody's me. Allah doesn't repeat himself in creating. So like no two people are like, that's why like all these like saints are so quirky. Like they're all kind of funny and weird and like you sit with them and like they just do little things that you're like, yo, you're so quirky, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But it's because they're not performing. Like they're just really being themselves in the moment. And so Allah also doesn't repeat himself in creating moments. Like Allah is writing every moment. So like every moment's different. And so, you know, making art out of it and expressing it, and it's never going to be the same.
So wild.
So like, yeah, just always being in danger.
Yeah. Just seeing what it's going to be because it's never been what it is right now.
Yeah.
Whoever's present with that, it's so special, you know, because that's when it's like you're not in your own way.
Yeah.
And you're not in my way if I'm watching you. It's like you're just sitting with this moment that's never happened before. You're showing it in a way that it's never been shown before because you're doing it. And so it's that thing too, you know, you were saying of, yeah, you do a bunch of different things, but the more you do it, the more I actually can see you, even though you're trying different things and doing different things. That's where you start to understand, oh man, this is how this person sees patterns, you know, and
right.
that, 'cause that to me is all good art is just someone who connects a certain pattern in a way. And then I start to understand the verb of how you connect moments and how you connect things regardless of the environment. And it becomes way less about the subject matter. It becomes way less about the genre and more just about the verb of how you connect dots and what it is that you're seeing, you know, because I think like the thing that again really inspires me is that, you know, none of us are creating anything. We're just finding, you know, we're finding and discovering
and reporting
and
documenting. And
like even that thing I always, I talk with AZ about this where I'm like, oh man, I hate the title created by on a television show. I always wish it was found by, you know, and I know that sounds, you know, it sounds funny. I know it sounds funny or it sounds, you know, overly, you know.
It sounds a little pretentious.
It's pretentious.
Like, yeah, man.
It's pretentious. But, you know, it's also like saying everything's love has somehow been deemed as out of touch or pretentious or cheesy,
corny.
Even, or corny, you know, to just say everything's love. But then when you know, you could go out and be cool and do all these things and be well read and travel the world and go to every museum and read every book, and where would you end up? You'd be like, well, everything is love. You know? Yeah. I think what people find cheesy is the bypassing, right? Of just kind of like saying everything's love straight up and then being like, well, you know, show your work, like, you know, show me, you know, and I get that, I respect it on the level, but it's like, it really is love and yeah, created I think everyone who's an artist knows that feeling when the melody hits you, when the idea hits you. You're witnessing it. You know, you're sitting there and you go, oh, that's crazy. You're watching it.
Yeah.
And then you go, okay, now I have to, you know, make this cogent so everyone else can watch it and hear it, right? But there's this element of you.
Somebody just delivered this to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Even if you're sitting with the guitar in your hand, or even if you got the thing playing, it's like it's happening. And I think the people that, you know, and I'm sure you feel this way, the people I love working with are people who, like, when I'm with them, I'm trying to make them laugh. Or I'm trying to, I know they've got a certain barometer or a certain this, or there's some people who I just feel funnier around, you know, but it never feels like it's me. It's almost like, oh, this recipe here, the Wi-Fi signal's really strong for finding.
Yes.
For tapping into the unseen. When we're together, it's strong, and then we're able to tap into it and then record it and report it. Yeah. And that's the most fun way of doing it. Because anytime it's like, well, I do this and I do that, like, the work is really tough.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's when you stop being sincere, like you stop really like exploring and like finding new things. Yeah. Yeah. You know, when you were talking about, like, there's certain people that you work with and, like, you're able to find it more. And I mean, it is like there's so much overlap between the spiritual path and the creative journey. Like, I mean, they really are one and the same. Like, they're, you know, because like you said, like if you sit with a guitar in your hand, or you sit in a room with like comedians, or, you know, somebody gets on stage and they start like riffing or doing crowd work or whatever, there's that moment where, like, the same way we're told about, like, praying, like we pray 5 times a day. So, like, what, 5 times a day you're just transformed, or like you're transported to another galaxy? Like, no. Yeah. You know what I mean? But if you show up on that rug 5 times a day, it is going to happen at some point. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like you knock on the door, and it's not up to us when it's open. Yeah. You know what I mean? And like when we're actually invited in, or when it's actually given to us. But yeah, and there are people that, like, you start to develop that understanding that we've been through this, and we understand what this is.
I was talking to a guy, and he said, I stopped praying. And I said, why? And he goes, because I felt like I was faking it. You know, it didn't feel like I would pray and I wouldn't feel anything. And I was like, that might be the best thing that you could do, because you just keep doing it, and it would almost be like, I didn't write a great script. It's like, why? Well, I sat down on Monday and I opened up my computer, but it just sucked. And I'm like, but it's like, you need that. Yeah. You need that rough draft in order for it to be good. Yeah. Those times you're doing it where you're not feeling anything are actually paving the way to arriving. Yeah. They're paving the way to feeling that connection with the unseen. Yeah. That's creative, that's spiritual, that's why it's the same path. Yeah. Because you're knocking on the door. That's every time you get in the studio, you don't write a hit. It's like, no, you know what I mean? It's like you have to go more. You have to try more. You have to try different ways.
It's interesting. Like, Freeway was here yesterday, and I was just talking to, I was talking to him, and I didn't quite get to it, but that's because I was supposed to get to it here. There's something about the lore around Malcolm X and Jay-Z, where, like, you know, that they're so inspirational to us, but there's something about the way that those stories are understood and told to us. And I'm not saying that they're untrue. Yeah. But there's something about Jay-Z listens to music, like he listens to a beat, and then he, in his mind, constructs the greatest rhymes ever written, and then he just walks in the studio and does them in one take. You know what I mean? That's a really beautiful, inspirational thing, and I don't deny that it's true. I know way too many people that have
witnessed.
They've been there and they've seen that. You know what I mean? But I mean, that's not what he does every single time. You know, like Young Guru showed the like, you know, Jay-Z did this verse on DJ Khaled, the God Did joint, like just like a few months ago. And it's one of the most amazing verses. And every single line is just like, it's just all these triple entendres and like connections and like
layered.
Yeah. And then Jay-Z actually, there was a white reporter who actually on the news did a piece about how amazing this verse is, where he explained it in this librarian kind of way. And Jay-Z took the audio from that and put it on streaming services.
From the reporter.
Yeah.
That's
and was just like, just so
cool.
you can see that this
sick.
person kind of gets it. You know what I mean?
That's sick.
And the engineer pulled up the file on Pro Tools.
Yeah.
And it's like, look, you could see cuts. Like if he's going in every 4 bars and doing something, he's like, here it is. It's one take. And that's like a 4-minute verse.
Wow.
It's one take. There's no paper. He did that.
No Apple tea.
Miracles happen. No Apple tea.
No trim, no move.
No.
Wow.
So that does happen. You know what I mean? And then the idea that like Malcolm X is the worst guy ever.
Yeah.
Like he's the worst hardened criminal, atheist ever. And then suddenly he meets Brother Baines, who's not a real person, by the way. You know what I mean? Like in the movie, Brother Baines is a composite of all the people in Malcolm's life that were telling him.
Yeah.
So like suddenly he gets a message, and overnight he becomes this.
Yeah.
I believe there's a lot of truth to that, but there's something about those kind of stories where people who aren't engaged in the process just give up. And that's one of the things that when people are like, give me some advice on making art, it's like, just do it and 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 do it. It's like the people that find their way had to endure so much pain. You know what I mean? Like that hadith that they're like, the paradise is surrounded in things that are displeasurable, and the fire is surrounded by things that are pleasurable. Like there's something very, you have to know something about what being a human being is to know that, like, in order for me to get to the other side of this, like, this is just going to be torture.
Yeah. And it's not, and I also think though the way those stories are told, the two you're talking about, and I think they're such good examples because they really fit into, I think, the overarching capitalist narrative of America, which is we worship the arc of rags to riches really quickly, and like everything is put through that lens. And so what's great about that for, just the American mythology is you could be all the way here and then you could be all the way there. But then, it kind of discounts the reality that most of us have to go through, which is, little bits day by day. Little pieces, little pieces. I remember when I was first doing stand-up, I was opening for Mo, and Mo told me a quote that his mentor had told him, where he was like, you start stand-up and you're on stage and you're surrounded by bricks. It's like a big brick wall, and every show you go, some shows you knock down 3 bricks, some shows you only make one of the bricks weaker, but it doesn't even go anywhere, and it's like that, right? And I loved that imagery of, the type of work that it takes to really be in that space and share it, in that unseen, and to do it with an audience, especially if you're an artist. But those stories are really, because I just think everything is in a capitalist lens. I think even the way we view religion has totally been turned into like the bank account of, okay, do good, heaven point, do bad, hell point. Like everything is kind of put through there, and it kind of, it ignores the fact that, when you're dealing with unquantified levels of mercy and love, all the math is going to be really difficult.
and pain. And harm.
Yeah.
Like the reality of love means that to deny it, to short it, to cheat it, is deeply painful.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like that's the other reality of love. That like when there is this ocean of love that's real and that's available, that's just asking. Allah says, I was a hidden treasure and I love to be known. So I made the creation to know me, like to discover me, to discover like this endless, boundless love. There is always a flip side of that coin.
Sure.
You know what I mean? That like to live without gratitude, to live without love, to deny it.
Yeah.
It like there's something incredibly intensely, at the very least, sad about that.
Well, it's when life, those moments, anytime I've had a moment where like life feels pointless, or I feel disconnected, or I feel, really depressed, really upset, I'm like, oh yeah, I need a gratitude adjustment.
Oh yeah.
I'm like, oh, I'm not being grateful,
Yeah.
and my other friend Ali, he said to me, he was like, if you sat and like actually part of our forgetfulness, he basically said part of our forgetfulness is helpful, because if you didn't forget to be grateful, you might not ever do anything again. Because if you only what we have to be grateful for is so vast that if you actually sat in it, you'd be like, I'm good.
And and you discover it again. But because of forgetting, you discover it again.
Yeah, the night gives you the appreciation for the sun, for the day.
Dude, Yassine Bey is just like, is like maybe my favorite, definitely one of my favorites. And he is somebody like this. I don't know how like much you've had to been able to be around him.
I've never met him. Yeah.
But he's one of these people that like he's such an artist that people have a hard time. He's like a cat. Where you're just like, hey, come here, kid. Hey, come here. You're like, your cat's not coming here. Your cat's not crossing the street. Your cat's not doing tricks. Like, and so people get frustrated by that. And even like there are fans that are like, we just want to hear Black on Both Sides. We just want to hear, you know what I mean? And he's going to come sprinkle rose petals and spin, and like his brother's going to be playing his favorite song at the moment and he's going to sing along with it. You know what I mean? And there are people that are like, just do what we want you to do. And it's like, no, he's in the moment. Every time I talk to him, I'm like, man, I need you. He's always, there's times where, I'm sorry, we haven't talked in a long time. I'm like, I need you being Yassine Bey at every moment. I need you, whatever you want to do, that's what I want you to be doing.
I trust the design. Don't even worry about it.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But he's had this verse for a long time, and so I've heard all these different forms of it. But it's on the new Black Star record, and he says, "So much beauty we forget and get reminded." And he repeats it: "So much beauty we forget to get reminded." You know what I mean? So that you could be anywhere and find it.
That's so dope.
Like
that's so
the whole verse. I quote this verse every week. Like I love it so much. It's like part of my like litany.
Wow.
This is it's a dedication to my favorite band, the Human Beings. Oof. The faithful, the graceful, the classic and the tragic, the evidence of things unseen, the book of light, the mansions in the moon, the bones of Pharaoh, newly discovered yet anything but new. The doubters' doubts about it never made it untrue.
Wow.
It's like, and I actually sat with him like I do with our teachers, and I was like, I need to go line for line on this verse with you, and just ask,
interrogate it.
Yeah, are you referencing what I think you're referencing? And I just straight asked him for like an ijaza on this verse. You know what I mean? But yeah, so much beauty we forget and get reminded. So much beauty we forget, then get reminded. So much beauty we forget to be reminded. So like we're forgetting to be reminded, but also we're forgetting so that we can remember and discover again. I was a hidden treasure and I love to be known. So like, yeah, like those moments of forgetfulness means that we discover again. And I have to think about too when the poet says that the wisest lovers hate to come together and they love to leave. Because when we come together, it's just like we're just gonna be separated again. But when we leave, it means that we're gonna be reunited.
Wow.
You know what I mean?
Wow. It's so beautiful. I mean, it's so beautiful because it's like, I love when the art is like, it means so much when artists can be each other's audience. Like it's so beautiful, because I think like it's the way it should be. Like us making art, the most singular things is someone recording a song, making a movie or whatever, that is the thing they want to see. Right? That's what they're thinking of, but trusting that because it connects with the thing that they want, that it'll connect to other hearts too, because it's so singular. They're not pandering, right? They're just doing it because they feel like, oh, I really want this to be out there. Where artists, I think, anytime there is jealousy or ill will or weirdness, there's almost this like subconscious thing I've always been trying to boil down where I'm like, it's like, there's this thing that comes up where like artists almost feel like, wait, like, you know, wait, you're going to be an artist too? You're doing this too? And it's almost like there's this fear that like they're going to run out of audience. You know, like that it's like, well, if everyone's an artist, then like who's going to be the audience? But then the reframe is so beautiful to me because it's like, no, like we're making it for each other. It's like we're trying to connect with these beautiful offerings so that we can talk to each other on all these levels where it's like you write a song that's so dope that I want to sit down and talk to you about the 3 different ways that I interpreted that one line.
Yeah.
And then you're just sitting in the ocean.
Yeah.
Right? So it's like, I feel like I love making art when I'm like, oh man, I can't wait for Brother Ali to see it and for us to like talk about it. Oh, I can't wait. Like, I hope this filmmaker I really like checks it out. And oh, I can't wait to see his thing. Like it genuinely lights me up because then I end up feeling like all I'm talking about is beauty when I'm talking about art in a way that I really love it. And I'm actually appreciating that other artists are making it.
Yeah.
And then it takes me further away from, you know, sitting in negativity. Because I just feel like a lot of the communities I grew up in, and I think like, you know, a lot of people from any background can resonate to this, where it's just like, what is conversation? What is dinner table talk? What is what you do when with you know, you're with your friends? It's like so much of it's so negative. It's like people talking shit about each other.
Complaints.
People saying this, I'm complaining about this.
Yeah.
Oh, the world is this. Oh, this is so bad. Oh, this is so sad. This is messed up. Nobody cares about me. No one cares about this group. Not that any of these things are invalid, but man, you know, to get to talk about a song that's really inspiring that somehow covers all that, but does it so impressively that I'm actually digesting all these things with the tone of awe and love and beauty. Yeah. That's what really excites me. And it's the thing that it's the thing that inspires me to never stop making things, but also to never stop watching things and taking in, you know, other people's work, because it's exciting. It's not anything other than that when that's the lens. When the lens is we're in an ocean. You know, like we all need to be doing it.
Thank you so much for tuning into the Travelers Podcast, for watching and listening. We really appreciate it week in and week out. From the very beginning, whether it was the musical journey, the live shows, the records, the CDs, the freestyle sessions, the battles, and now into the podcasting, the lectures that I've given across the country and around the world, the classes that I've taught, the online learning series, all this stuff that we do is about exploring and expressing what's going on inside of us, but then also having that be a conversation with the people that share in it and contribute to it and shape it by listening to it and by supporting it. You're a part of it, and you've always known that. Whether this is your first time checking out the podcast or whether you've been listening to my music, going to my shows for 20-something years, you know that you are absolutely part of it. We share something that's going on inside of us. Our guests share something, we have an experience, and then your support of it and your feedback and you being part of it, you absolutely shape it. The way that we're doing that now is if you go to brotherali.com in the join section or brotherali.com/join, you'll see the caravan. The caravan is where we not only share this growing kind of library that we're building, our own kind of streaming platform for rare and exclusive and unreleased music and videos and live shows and talks and conversations and presentations and all kind of stuff that we share in that section. But also there's a way to communicate. So at the $5 level, you get access to all that stuff. There's Ask Me Anything episodes. I'm about to drop one that's a Nobody Ask Me Anything episode, which are just like comments that people share, things that I see people say about me, assumptions that people have, things that people have never asked me that frankly are offensive. But I'm like, yo, I think because I present myself mostly in a polite polite way. People only want to talk to me in polite ways for the most part. But people talk about me and about things I care about and say and do in ways that are not that. And so I think I'm going to do an episode that we'll share just in the caravan of the less than polite things people say to me and about me. So that'll be in there. But there's also ways to connect. We also have a $100 level that is a legitimate community space. We keep it limited. We make sure that it is somewhat exclusive because we want to have a real sense of authenticity, of being able to be vulnerable with each other, of being able to know that there's a level of privacy there. And we're all sharing in it together. So we've got folks in there. We're connected on a Slack channel where we talk to each other on a regular basis. People are a part of each other's lives. And because I speak from and to so many different communities and for so many different communities and walks of life, there's people in there that wouldn't know each other and wouldn't have this level of real intimate connection if it wasn't for coming together in this way. So it's a very, very beautiful thing. And I really am grateful to be able to do it and to facilitate it. So you go to brotherali.com/join, or just go to brotherali.com, get in the join section, get down with the caravan, be part of the people that really, really make this show happen, this work happen, this music continue, this movement happen. And we appreciate you very much. When I don't like other people's stuff, there's a couple things. Sometimes I love a person and a subject so much. And honestly, so like your show is so hard for me to watch.
I know.
Because I love you so much.
I know.
And like the guy that I see on the show is not the guy that I know.
I know.
And so I'm just like, no, that's not. No. Like this is the guy that like, man, we moved to Istanbul and my daughter was like really sad. She had to leave all her friends and everything. Yeah. And like the message you sent her, like I probably watch it more than she does. Because I'm just like, this guy is so, you know what I mean? It's just like so sweet. And then also like coming from you, it's different. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. Because I'm her dad.
Yeah, of course.
And, you know what I mean? And most of my homies are like her uncles. Yeah. You know what I mean? Yeah. But like you're cool. You know what I mean?
I love her so much.
You're cool. So, you know what I'm saying? Like she dresses like you. You know what I'm saying? Like, like I'm saying, like, so it's just different. And I'm just like, man. So it's hard. But at the same time, I also know those conversations. That like the ones that we had. Yeah. And I think I have an idea for like what your intention is in the show. Yeah. So it's double because I'm like, I'm drawn to it because I'm like, this is my dude, you know what I mean? Like he made this, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like this is the journey, and this is like, so like you being an artist, I love that part. Yeah. But also I like, that's the part where I get weird is like, and everybody, you know what I'm saying? It's the same thing where people are like, well, how are other people gonna receive this? Yeah. And are they gonna see what I see? Like the criticism of Dave, for example, is like, okay, well, there are people who do crime, who actually are like hateful and violent towards LGBT people, and this is gonna make them feel so and so. Right. And it's like, okay, there's something to that. Yeah. But like also, but is that what Dave is actually saying? Right. You know what I mean? And so there's a lot of people in my life that I'm like, I understand when you say, okay, well, this could be taken like this. Yeah. But I know why they're saying it. Yeah. You know what I mean? I grew up loving Minister Farrakhan. And first of all, like I'm not only like Dave's always like, Brother Ali is the whitest of the whites. It's just like, man, okay, if the white man's the devil, like word, like okay, like no problem. I don't even feel like he's like attacked by that. You know what I mean? So I understand everything he's saying, but there are people that are like, he's speaking bad about this community or that community, and he's inciting this and that, and I'm just like, man, I understand. And I believe in his right to say what he's saying. And I know that there are certain people that they may feel like, well, then you're not my ally, or, I understand that. But I also have my times where I'm just like I want people to know how beautiful you are. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I feel like but I love your stand-up. Yeah. Because in the stand-up, there's that look in your eye when you're about to say something. There's just like, there it is. Like, that's it. You know what I mean? And it doesn't matter what you say. Because in the stand-up, I feel like I'm like, all right, everybody's gonna see
right.
the soul of the person here.
Yes,
You know what I mean?
Yeah. You know, the obviously, look, there's the misleading thing about the show, which has been that, yeah, I am fully playing a character, but it has the same name. And so that was always the thing where if I look back, I think you look back on anything and there's things you would amend. It's probably the biggest thing I would amend is the name piece because it's a character, you know, and for me, you know, I'm very proud of the show, and
as you should be. It's a dope ass show.
No, for sure. Like I know the crowd. You know, I've
like
really,
as art, it's
of course,
ill. Yeah.
No, and I also know, the sensitivities it opens up, and I know, and by the way, it's like it's in terms of comedy and filmmaking and all that stuff. It's like, you know, you get up at bat and you take a swing, and it's like, you know, you're not always gonna connect, but it's like if I look at like batting average of things, we wanted to do. I'm like, man, I can't believe we connected as much as we connected for something that like most of us making the show had never made anything, right? So it's like out of nowhere, and it cut through, and there's so much that feels really resonant to what we want to say. So all of that is really exciting. I think in terms of the stuff where like, yeah, things will get taken in a certain way, or it, you know, because it's highly sensitive material. Yeah. I just think because, you know, so much of the things that have felt you know, threatening to people, or people have been unhappy with, or anything like that in our communities with the show, I always kind of feel like they come from just the lack also of what we have, because it's like it was never really made for everybody, but it kind of gets received as if it's for everybody because there isn't that much. Right. So, you know, I think that's always kind of, at least right now, the position that it's sat in. And yeah, I've understood that, but then I've also been in, you know, even to what we said 20 minutes ago, it's
you
like,
see how corny I just made this conversation? That's why I was saying that. Cause like we're talking about art and beauty, you know what I'm saying? So, but I'm saying like I bring this up mostly to say like I have my own version of that. You know what I mean? Even when we're talking about art that's like there's no denying it's dope art. Yeah. And even when I love the person that made it, almost like especially when I love the person that made it. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? If there's a show that I'm just like, nah, it's not for me. You know what I mean? It's like you know? No,
of course, but it's personal. I mean, but that's part of the potency too. So you have to, like, for me, it's like, part of the potency is because it's personal. Yeah. So it's like, if there's going to be fallout because it's personal, well, that's just also the cost of like what I'm choosing to talk about. So that's also on, like, I get that. Yeah. I get that deal. Like, I'm making that deal and I get it. But for me, it's always offset by like, man, the people who it really means a lot to, it means a lot to. Absolutely. And the people who hate it. Yeah. They don't hate it for the length of time or with the depth that the people who love it. So it's like the people who love it, it sits with them and they really love it and they have it. The people who hate it are like, man, that guy sucks. You know, he's a sinner. He's the anti whatever. He's a da da da, and then they move on to their next thing, right? Yeah. Like it's not like their obsession in the way with the people who like really connect with it and it really means something to them, and it opens up conversations that were closed, right? So that to me is always you know, my favorite part of it.
Yeah, man. It's like I was to get to this thing with like when we're talking about like we're having these like real like these heart level, soul level conversations. Yeah. And then the second we get to something political, like we all have we're all experiencing reality, but we have our that's when we start to get from like soul and heart to like intellect and ego. You know what I mean? Like if you think about the spectrum of what a human being is, like we're a soul, and the soul just has no language. It's just and then the hearts have their own language, but it's so much more vast. Yeah. The second we get to intellect, it gets smaller, and then once we get to ego, it's just me and like
it might as well be about anything. Yeah.
Yeah. You know what I'm saying? But we have our experiences, and then we have our emotional connection to those experiences. You know what I mean? And every time, like it seems like the way that people receive your show is so based on what their experience is. Yes. You know what I'm saying? I was talking with like a mutual friend. I'll tell you who it is later. But last night, one of the brothers like came to town just to hang out with me, like you did. Like you came here just so beautiful. But the brother came and I was like, I'm interviewing Ramy tomorrow, and he was like, what do you think of Ramy's show? Like, we had never talked about it. And
Yeah,
I told him exactly what I said to you. I was like, man, it's so hard because I want to love it.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, like he knows how much I love you.
Yeah.
And it's dope TV.
Yeah.
And it's interesting TV.
Yeah.
And like, that's very rare.
Yeah.
Like, I can't see very well, and TV is not really like, I watch the same things over and over again.
Yeah.
So also, I'm not a person that deserves to critique TV. Because, like, you know what I'm saying?
You're like, I don't understand all the cinematography.
Well, like, I don't know TV.
Right.
Like, so I don't even know the
landscape.
The landscape.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, I legitimately, I have like 3 or 4 shows that I watch, and I still watch them.
Yeah.
Like, I'm still watching The Sopranos.
I mean, I think a lot of us are, though. I mean, it's
You know what I'm saying?
It's that good.
But I can watch it. I'm like, this is legitimately dope.
Yes.
You know what I mean? Just because I know enough about art to know, like, this is ill.
Yeah.
And like you are taking enormous experiences and concepts and putting them. There is a truth.
Right.
And that's really what it's about.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then also, you're an artist, you do whatever the hell you want.
Yeah.
Like, you should be doing whatever you want. And so
course.
there's the artist in me, like, you know, Dave was saying when Kramer was on stage and he shouted the N-word.
Yeah.
He's like, that's how I know I'm a comedian before I'm black. Because the black dude, the black person in me is just like, oh man, that's messed up. But he's like, the comedian is like, oh, Kramer's having a bad night.
Yeah.
You'll get him tomorrow. Don't worry. Come on, champ. It'll be all right. You know what I mean? So like, the artist in me is just like, yeah, man, do it. Do it. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I see the truth in it, which is like, that to me is
Yeah.
you know what I mean? But there is this other part of me where it's like, I don't see the particular part of the truth that I want highlighted.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So like, yeah, your character is your name, and that makes total sense.
Yeah.
It's not gonna matter to me as much as the fact that like, you're so beautiful. Like, I love you as much as I love anybody.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, no, but you can't see how beautiful he is. Like, that's the part I care about. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And then even the stuff with like being a Muslim. So this friend I was talking to, his dad's a convert.
Yeah.
And he grew up in Egypt. You might know who I'm talking about now.
Okay.
And so he grew up in Egypt. And he had a lot of the experiences that you're talking about on the show.
Yeah.
And so he's like, this for a long time was my dad's religion. And I had to go bump my head and experience all this stuff before I finally realized that once I did all of that, that was empty. And so then that was my gateway to realizing I forgot, then got reminded.
Wow.
You know what I'm saying? Like what we're saying.
Yeah.
He's like, I basically was running away from this thing. He sat his dad down. His dad's a very prominent like convert that we all love.
Yeah.
And he was like, this is your religion. I'm not doing it. And his dad was like, I respect your path. You do what you need to do. You still got to come with me to like the dhikr.
Yeah.
You still got to come and sit and hear people sing the name of God.
Yeah.
But that's not a space where people are like, do you have a tattoo? They're not bothering you about that in those spaces.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So he was saying from his perspective, he was just like, man, so much of that show validates my experience. And you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So like seeing it from his perspective. But then me and my other friends that converted to Islam, especially in the 90s, black and white, are just like, no, but Islam is the medicine for our people, and they don't know it. They've never been exposed to it. And like you're saying, it goes to your point that if there was like Muslims making all kind of TV, you know what I'm saying, then you wouldn't have. So there, at the same time, there is something really liberating about you saying, and forgive if I'm understanding this incorrectly, but like, hey, part of me being a full artist, as a Muslim, as an Arab American, as a like, I don't have to carry everybody's message on my back. I'm saying what I want to say. So the artist in me is just like, yeah, man. You know what I'm saying? Like, go ahead, get him.
I mean, I also think it's important that I'm wrong. You know, like I think that's really important. Because I'm not a teacher. And I think it's really important for that to be clear. And that's something that means a lot to me, because I never, and maybe to a fault, but I was really conscious of like, oh, this can't get cooked up in anyone's subconscious as a how-to. And I've definitely done a good job of that, of making sure that it's like not something that, this isn't where, don't get your knowledge here. This isn't where you get your knowledge other than emotional knowledge. Like all you're gonna get from this is, and I think, you know, the way you just classified it is right. There are people who are like, man, I felt like every door was closed. And then, you know, and I'm never really, I can't, it's not, I mean, I can't be public about things that people have reached out and said to me about like what the show has done for their journey. But it's like when those are the things that are like,
themselves. There's a lot of people that didn't leave Islam. There's a lot of people that didn't.
It's like kind of intense, you know, and you know, I any intensity I feel to do things a different way or better or whatever actually comes from knowing how much those people rock with it, as opposed to the people who don't. Like anyone who's just like, oh, you're bad at this and you did this, you did it. It never even like that's not. I can hear feedback and say, oh, that was legit, for sure. Like so that gets to me and in a good way, like where I'm like, oh, that's a good point, because again, you know, I mean, I've been doing this for a couple of years, ultimately, right? So it's all learning. But the things that the people whose feelings I feel loyal to are the people who I know, oh man, this means a lot to them. You know, this is something for them, you know? And, but it's really important that the character is flawed. It's really important that like, it's just clear that, you know, I'm not a teacher and I'm not in that position. And so it's really, again, I'm not saying that balance I've mastered, but it's been crucial for me to be like, you know, this isn't, you know, I'm making a dramedy comedy, you know, that's, you know, mature rated on Hulu. Like there's only so, you know what I mean? Like there's only so much that job entails that I'm even qualified to take on. Right. So that's, you know, another piece of it.
It's deep when you say there's not a teacher, you're not a teacher because like, you're not a teacher of Islam. So like we all love Sheikh Hamza Youssef. Yeah. And like I went to school at his school and I always was doing the like really formal like yes Nam Sidi, you know what I mean, whenever he would be around and stuff like that. And then, you know, he misspoke about race one time publicly. Yes. And he got called out for it. And so many people that know me and know him were like, you're the person to talk to Sheikh Hamza about this. Wow. And people kept saying, call him, like people really close to him. Yeah. Please just talk to him about it. And I was like, and he wasn't answering my calls. And so I saw him. And Dr. Asad Tarsin, who wrote the book Being Muslim, who literally did write this is how to. Yes. Like he took my hand and took Sheikh Hamza's hand and put them together. Wow. And Sheikh Hamza turns around and he goes, you're going to tell me I'm wrong about Black Lives Matter? And I was like, look, man. And he goes, it's the dunya. I'm just wrong. You're going to be wrong in the dunya. He's like, it's the dunya, we're going to be wrong. He's like, this is just how I see the dunya. But if someone asks me what I think, I just have to tell them what I think. He's like, Imam Zaid says I'm wrong. Ubaidullah Evans says I'm wrong. I'm just wrong. So I was like, after all this time I've been treating him like the master. And I was like, the thing though is you never come across like you think you might be wrong. Right. And he just went like this and he punched me. And he's like, how come you never come over? Yeah. he's like, how come you never come to my house? And like ever since then now it's like, because the second I said that to him, it's like, oh, we can actually be friends. You know what I mean? I say that to just say that like, I also understand that part of the human condition and process is like, we have our assessments and our emotional connection to the part of the truth that's ours. You know what I'm saying? Like I've been exposed to this particular stream. And so, okay, so is part of what you're doing like giving voice to like what it feels to feel despair about your relation? Is that like that's what it is? Well, it's also about like, can I really be with Allah? Yeah. Can I really actually do? Is it true that I ain't shit?
Yeah, it's about shame, you know, and it's about the way that, you know, guilt calcifies into shame. And then it's also about growing up in this country with the faith, but a version of it that is, it's a tricky one because it's like, you know, our communities that we were in, it was, you know, a bunch of our parents doing their best, but not always to spiritually connect, but almost to like uphold the version of the country that they left in the 70s. And so you're in this hodgepodge of, you don't know what's cultural, you don't know what's spiritual. You kind of know the language, but you also really know English much more.
And you just can't say Jim no matter. You can't say.
If you're Egyptian,
you can't say Jim no matter how hard you try.
If you're Egyptian, you can't say Jim. And then your dad can't say the letter P. And, you know, there's all these things going on.
Gamil.
Yeah, there's all
Guma Mubarak.
Guma Mubarak, you know. All these things are happening. But the thing that seems to be most potent is what you shouldn't do. The thing that seems to be most potent is guilt. And, you know, I feel like a lot of the series, a lot of the stuff that, you know, is a big part of what I've been exploring these first couple of years, you know, is how do you work your way out of shame back to love? And so that's what the character for me is going through. And, you know, it's like he just keeps digging. It's like, it's almost the thing that he's most comfortable doing is hurting himself just to see if he could still be loved, you know? And
I hurt myself today to see if I still feel.
I'm just ripping that. I'm just ripping that.
Subhanallah.
But you know, that's what it is. That's what it's for. And you know, I think that I think a lot of people are in that position, and that's just, you know, the benefit of naming the show Ramy to now like flip on that is you know, it's not anything wider than that, right? It's not, I didn't call it Muslims. You know, I didn't call it anything like, remember like, I remember someone on a network call was like, remember how like girls was just called girls? What if it's just called Muslims? You know, and I was like, well, there's a lot of us.
I mean, the phone. I just want to offer a point of feedback on that one.
I was just like, that's not gonna fly. There's, we're nearing 2 billion. Like, and I'm, you know, now I'm digging myself in a weird place, as opposed to just kind of saying, no, we're pretty clear like what this guy is looking for and where he's at and what his situation is. So again, it's like, you know, we're in a weird environment, especially for people who are consumers of nuanced English-based cinema, television, right? Where the type of story we're doing is one of the first to crack those kinds of things. And it's certainly not, you know, so what's interesting is, you know, getting to do that specifically, you know, then, you know, after the first season, we started writing the second season, but even like as we were doing that, you know, I wrote the Mo pilot with Mo, right? Because I was like, oh, like, you know, your stand-up is so developed in the story that you have. It's like man versus immigration system. And honestly, inherently, I was like, I know our communities, they're just more comfortable with this story, and Mo's like the great person to tell it and to do it. And so I was, you know, it was kind of one of the most tiring things for me, just being double duty, like trying to like make it all happen at once. But it was really important for me because I was like, oh, that's another swing at it, just in a totally different vein. You know, that's talking about being Palestinian, which is really important. And that's like, you know, something that's like really, how do we make that specific to what his stand-up is? And so for me, like the thing that I've had fun nurturing and that, you know, inshallah, I hope I get to do over, you know, the course of the next 10, 15 years, you know, hopefully beyond, but even in that is like, you know what, like, because the first swing, I continued to say, no, I'm just going to make it what it needs to be. Then we got to do something with Mo. We're like, we're just going to make that what that needs to be. Then it's just like, cool. Like, you know, there's a few, you know, really talented women I've been talking to, or stand-ups, filmmakers, whatever. And it's like, how can I help you make your thing that the way that it really needs to be? Like that to me is how it, you know, but if the first thing was trying to make like everybody happy at once, I don't think it would have been good. Nothing would have made anyone really that happy. And then also, I think it would hurt that artist part of us of like, how do we do this thing, you know, to be honest to what we want. And so, but yeah, it's like, it's all with all its, you know, imperfections. And then you just hope that, you know, I hope that it's funny making something that is seen, right? The medium is to be seen. And what I hope is that it's accepted by the unseen.
Yeah.
It's so wild because I'm just like, I hope, and I won't know. You know, I won't know.
We talk about therapy every single week on this show, and we were doing so even before we had this partnership with BetterHelp. But all of us have stuff going on inside of us that we need to sit with, we need to talk through, we need to deal with. And it's not only people that have had these like extreme traumatic events. We tend to think like, oh, well, I didn't watch my parents get murdered in front of me, so that means I don't need therapy. Or maybe I'm not aware of ever being, a survivor of sexual violence, so that means I don't need therapy. The reality is that all of us live with this sense of what life should be like and how people should treat each other. And from a very early age, that sense of safety and love and community and security and acceptance is punctured and it's ruptured and it's damaged. And our sense of self goes through a lot of different things. Our understanding of the world, our understanding of ourselves, we have things that we need to talk through, that we deserve to talk through. And for me, I've always known that, and I've had different interactions with therapy. But a couple years ago, my family and I moved to Istanbul, Turkey, and people here don't speak English. It's hard for me it's almost not necessarily legal and like fully licensed for me to talk to therapists in America. Like they would be violating their licenses, most of them, to talk to me knowing that I'm not in their state or in the areas where they're licensed. And so I was listening to a podcast that I love, and I heard them talking about BetterHelp. So I was like, man, let me try this out. You go to their site, betterhelp.com/travelers, and you're going to get a discount on your first month. And we also get a commission to help the work that we do here. You go there, you tell them like, what is it? Tell me about yourself. How old are you? Where do you live? Where are you from? Is there anything that we need to know about you that would help in your therapy journey? And then what do you want to talk to a therapist about? It can be addiction. It can be relationship stuff. It can be trauma. It can be abuse. It can be anger. It can be, you name it. A human being is a complicated thing. Human beings are mysterious things with a lot of stuff going on inside of us. So you start with that. And then you say like, well, what kind of therapist do you want to talk about? Is there a certain approach to therapy that you've heard about that you might like? Have you ever talked to a therapist before? Have you ever been given a diagnosis before? Are you on any kind of medication? And then how do you want to talk? So you choose a therapist, and then you have access to their calendar. You book your own appointment without ever having to talk to anybody. And then you can start communicating with them right away. And once you start talking, if it's a match made in heaven, then dope. If it's not, after a few sessions, I've had people that I was talking to that I was like, man, this person is really wise. They're great. They're trained. They're licensed. If they had a podcast, I'd listen to it, but they're not listening to me the way that they're not tailoring this to me. And I'm here to be served. Like I'm paying my money. I'm taking my time out. I'm here for Ali's therapy, not just to hear your program. So I switched, and it's like no hard feelings, no questions asked. These people are professionals. It's no extra charge. And I started that same week with a new therapist, and it was somebody that I felt like was a little better. So I've been through a couple of therapists on BetterHelp, and it's a beautiful thing. So go to betterhelp.com/travelers. Like I said, you get a discount, we get a commission. You're supporting the work here. You're supporting you living your best life and being your best self. And you're also part of this community, and we're very grateful to be in partnership with BetterHelp. I was introduced to Islam through the Black American Muslim community.
Yeah.
Who is an entire generation of people who you could say are converts. Islam is like is many generations back in West Africa, but so it's a whole community of people very sincerely loving each other based on this is our connection to the fullness of life.
Yeah.
And this is the thing that's gonna help us all. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's my whole communal and individual relationship to the thing. But that's not all there. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I'm glad that even though I feel so like I felt so corny, and there was part of me that's like, even when I was feeling that way, it's like, this is a corny opinion. Like you know how sometimes
which one though?
Well, when I'm watching the show and I'm just like, I don't like how I feel watching this. You know what I'm saying?
No.
Because I remember when you were doing the first season, one of the ideas was like, I would love to see, and I'm not the only person that had this idea.
Yeah.
But I was like, I would love to see a person like Dr. Omar or Imam Zaid.
Yeah.
Because of the fact that, like, okay, men are whack. Like, people are whack for the most part.
Yes.
But like, we do have these people in our community
great,
that are so strong, so loving, so wise, so affirming, so empowering to everybody around them.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And I've been around them when they're mad. I've been around them when people wrong them.
Yeah.
I've been around them when people, and so I was like, I would love to see a character like that.
Yeah.
And you said, I should be a woman. And I was like, no.
Yeah.
I was like, no. Like, have your grandmother be a but that's not what I'm talking about. Right. I'm talking about the men that we know.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Right.
And so then I was like, okay, Amir is coming in and and Miss Mahershala, and everybody loves Mahershala.
Yeah.
So I'm watching that happen, and I'm like, and then at the end,
yes,
you know what I'm saying?
Yes.
Like when the character whose name is also Ramy,
yes,
does something that the real Ramy didn't do in real life. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm like, no, you wouldn't do that.
Yes.
You know what I'm saying? So also I'm still like, as I'm hearing myself saying these things, I'm like, okay. Like this like super literalist. Like, I'm just like, dude, like, you're not being an artist right now. That's why we need each other. You know what I'm saying? That's why we need each other.
I need you too.
Cause you know what I'm saying?
I know.
Because it's also like, because I'm watching this show and I do know those conversations, and I'm like, I remember the conversations, but like, I'm not the same guy that had that conversation now that I'm watching this show.
Yeah, of course,
you know what I'm saying?
Of course.
And that's also what makes it dope, though. You know what I'm saying? That's also what makes it ill. Right. That you're just like, man, this is what I'm trying to say, though. You know what I mean? Right. And even the people that whatever that love me or been, but whatever, like, you're not gonna understand, and that's how true it is.
Yeah.
That's how true it is.
Yeah.
And that's how risky it is.
Yeah.
So I'm like talking to you about the risk, because also when my first records came out, there were people even in that like Black American Muslim community. I remember reading a post from this like really prominent family in Harlem, and it said, how do you feel when someone from our community actually makes it as an MC, somebody who knew Imam Warthi Muhammad, and then you go to the store and you see their music at Best Buy and Target. This is 2007.
Wow.
He's like, well, you see their music in Best Buy and Target, and they're on Conan O'Brien, and like, and you go buy the music and you put it in the car with your family, and you can't listen to it because it's so filthy. You know what I mean? And that he was talking about me.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? And I'm like, man, I felt hurt, and I also completely understood what he was talking about.
Of course.
And the first time that I went to a gathering with Dr. Omar, there was like some of the like students had been hearing like, oh, there's this Brother Ali guy, he's a rapper.
Yeah.
So they went on Spotify and listened, and it's it's filthy.
Yeah.
And one of them said, Brother Ali, he was being so sweet. He's like, have you made any music we can listen to? And I was just sitting there in this like living room full of like rich, like rich Pakistani, like, you know what I'm saying? I'm just like, and so I went and saw Dr. Omar. We sat alone, and he was like, Brother Ali, how are you doing? How are you feeling? And he was like, do you feel good being in this place? Because he could probably feel that I didn't. And I was like, honestly, here's an experience I just had. I was like, somebody just said, have you made any music for us? And he goes, you know, in any case, the next time they ask that question, just say no. It's not for you. And I'm flashing back on that right now, and I'm like, hey, Ramy, you made TV for me? No.
Not yet.
In any case, no. But man, mashallah. It's weird also that and I didn't mean to do this. Like,
no, I
have him
love
come
it.
in the podcast, and we're gonna have this do it publicly. But mashallah, yeah, man.
I really appreciate it, because it's that I remember, you know, there was this thing even with my family, and because I love my parents, man. I'm not like, there's artists who are like, oh, my parents, they did me wrong, and now I'm making this thing, and it's like, no, like it's harder when you like deeply love your family, deeply, and then you're like, okay, and this is something that is very, because you know how it is with when you're making something. There's the hard work element, and then there's the inevitable of it, like we were talking about earlier, where it's just, this is flowing and it's happening in a certain way. Doesn't mean it's perfect, doesn't mean you couldn't have done things better or whatever. All of that is real, but then there's also the reality of like, the miracle that it takes for something to actually get out there into the world is a miracle. And then you have to trust, like, who it's for, and the offering is like, and again, this is why we need so many artists, and this is why we need all of these conversations, is because it allows us to look at the ocean, right? And I do think that the issue with any of the modern media, modern capitalism, marketing, the way we talk about art, the way we view art, is that it has turned the ocean into just like a really specific, not even stream, maybe just a faucet, where it's just like, this is all you're getting. And when you're in that situation, everybody feels trapped, the audience and the people making it. And so it's like, how do we, kind of blow that open? And
that's where it gets, that's where the, when it gets into the thing where it's a product that exists on the shelf or on the streaming service with other products. And that's the part that I'm just like, I don't care about that part.
Yeah.
Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. Like I was happy when you get awards.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? I'm just like, dope. Yeah, they should recognize him, and you know what I'm saying? Like, all that is always dope. But there were people one of the critiques that I heard, and it's like nobody says these things to us, so you're just aware of the critique. Yeah. You know what I mean? Is that like there are people that thought you were pandering.
Oh yeah.
To like, you know what I mean? To the like, to Hollywood. And there were certain things that were like, he's throwing, and I never
that's
got
always
that.
the weirdest one, because I'm like, the critique I'll get is that it's too specific. You know what I mean? It's like, this is certainly not pandering. Like, it's like, I mean, this is like very, it's just like in stuff. I mean, this is like stuff like in, you know what I mean? Like a lot of these things, like we're not even translating half the Arabic. Like, you know what I mean? It's. Yeah,
I think the thing is like, so there's this, there is also a history, and part of this is like even the like historical narrative that's inspired me.
Yeah.
So like, in America you have this war-like system where certain people have to be at the top.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Where like white people have to be at the top and everybody else has to be smaller.
Yeah.
And every system is going to be used to reinforce that.
Yeah.
Including culture and art.
Of course.
You know what I'm saying? So it's like, we will only let you in if you support a narrative of being less than us.
Right.
And less than yourself.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's like, okay, you can be black in Hollywood, but you actually have to put shoe polish on your face.
Right.
And you've got to be our stereotype.
Right.
You know what I mean? And then we look at all this amazing hip hop music, and like, okay, so Chuck D and Public Enemy was powerful, but NWA is just, and it's completely like in line with like what our vision is. You know what I'm saying? That's what black people are. You know what I'm saying? Like, yeah, you're cooler than us, you're sexier than us, you're you know what I'm saying? But you're violent, you sell drugs, you hate women, da 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 da. This is the one that we choose. So like the corporate structure chose, this is the hip hop that you get to see. Everything else has to be underground. And then so that when Ice Cube breaks through that, and it's like America's Most Wanted and like whatever, it's like, that's the hero. Muhammad Ali is the hero. I'm pretty, I'm beautiful, and I beat everybody. And you think I'm stupid, but let's do an interview and like bring everybody and see if you can. I'm not lowering myself to you, and too bad I'm already here and I'm already great in your face. You know what I'm saying? And they hated him when he was great. Then when he got sick and he's trying to light the torch at the thing, they're like, we love him.
Yeah.
So there's that whole part. This idea that like, we will accept, like Eddie Murphy just did the movie with the Guess Who's Coming to Dinner thing.
Yeah.
And it's like, he's a black Muslim and he got his kufi from Farrakhan, but it's a joke.
Yeah.
I hate that type of stuff.
Yeah.
To me, it's like this is blackface in a way. You know what I'm saying?
Sure.
With Islam.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And Eddie's not Muslim.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So I'm just like, how is this?
Yeah.
Full, and Eddie's the greatest of all. Eddie's ill. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
I love
course.
everything he does.
Of course.
But with that particular thing, I'm like, they approved this.
Yeah.
Because it's like you need to come down to our level.
Yeah.
And then we'll acknowledge you.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
So I think that's where people got the idea that that there was some pandering in the sense that like, well, we're just as crappy as you.
Right.
And we don't actually live our religion either.
Right.
And we're just like we're just as crappy as you are.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? Like there's this feeling, but I don't see that.
Yeah, I mean, because I think the thing about it is like, you know, there's a really fine line where it's like, I think making fun of religion's corny. That's corny. You know, that's what comedy is. Like the idea of going to church is a punchline. So there's no, like, I think that would only really be valid if there's like a show about someone being a young Christian and they're like good at it, or, you know, they're good in the faith or whatever. And that's really accepted and people love it. But it's like, people like comedy heavily shits on anything that's religious. You know what I mean? Like whether it's, you know, something like Righteous Gemstones, which is a very funny show. And I think what it makes fun of is, you know, a certain type of conservatism, you know, which is valid. I mean, I think that, you know, the context that I look at is that the way religions become the industry of religion and how much pain religious institutions have brought, right? So, which is not your story, but it is a lot of people's story, which is, you know, where I was, what religion did to me. The word God has been used to do some of the most atrocious things on earth, right? So for me, I'm like, wait, we made this show where, this guy's like crappy and he's just as crappy as you and everyone has the same problems. And I do like the element that this is a family that feels the same types of pain that any family would feel. I love that. And religion is totally aspirational for this character. Like he wants it. You know, he's going for it. We're not making fun of it. We're talking about the stuff that's in it. And that's where I'm like, when someone's like, you're making this show for white people, and I was like, how?
Well, also
like
with that moment
Islam's like the golden star of the show. Like this guy like wants it so bad, you know?
Yeah. Couple things came up when like one is that when white people are going in on, when white comedians are going in on the church and Christianity, that's iconoclastic because the church is the icon.
Right.
Like, and that was undeniable. So like that's in the past, that like the church is ironclad. You cannot question the church. The church already had that elevated station. You know what I'm saying? So they're attacking the elevated place. Whereas Islam has always been, in America, has always been either a threat or silly and stupid. Right. People have never actually seen what Islam is. But I'm saying that's not what you claim. That was never your claim.
To show what it was.
Yeah.
I mean,
I'm sorry. And then but then what I'm looking for is like, where's the part where you see the actual ability of Islam to touch people, transform people, affirm people. Like my problem isn't the sinning. You know what I'm saying? My problem isn't the sinning. My problem is like, okay, but where's the part where you do see where the beauty and the truth and the redemptive power actually you see that actually be real, as real as the other thing. But what I'm getting from this conversation, and also it's a thing with me. You know how we see patterns? Of course. I'm like, I'm seeing a similar pattern I've had with my children. So like, I've this is real. You know what I'm saying? When a person is in despair, that part doesn't reach them. So to me, that's where it all makes sense now, and maybe I could love the whole thing now. If I'm like, this is what it feels like for a person to be in despair. I've never been in despair with my religion. Right. You know what I'm saying? Right. And that's not a claim. It's just that the people in my life, all the people I converted with are murderers. Right. You know what I'm saying? And pimps and like crackheads and drug addicts that are all like coming to Islam. And all Islam is saying to us is like, you are not what the world says you are. Like when the world says you're low, that's shaitan. So even
Right.
if when Farrakhan's saying the white man's the devil, what he's saying is, and that comes from the Honorable Elijah Muhammad, and like, but the idea that like Shaitan in the Quran is saying you're only the worst of who you are. You know what I'm saying? And the angels are even asking, are they just the lowest of who they are? Aren't they just gonna, you know what I'm saying? Aren't they just gonna cause trouble and make mischief and shed blood? And in that question is, aren't they just gonna jack off and like sleep with their cousin when they're supposed to marry the sheikh's fine ass daughter? And you know what I'm saying? Like, aren't they gonna sleep with the married lady during Ramadan? And aren't they just gonna? That's the angel's question.
Yeah.
But Allah says, I know what you don't know.
Yeah.
So Allah never says, no, they're not going to do that.
Yeah.
Like Allah doesn't say, no, don't worry about it. They're not going to cause a bunch of problems. You know what I'm saying? But Shaitan is like, that's all they are.
Yeah.
And so the whole thing about Allah is that message and that what I've and is always seen as a Quranic message is like, yes, falling is part of it.
Yeah.
It's part of it. And like all of that stuff is part of it.
Yeah.
But the real conflicting thing is that Shaitan is saying falling is all you are.
Yeah.
And Allah is saying, I know what you don't know.
Yeah.
Because that's been my experience. And I had one person in my life that was this highly respected religious person that then I learned about this whole other side later. And they were hurting people. And I remember going to Dr. Omar and I was like, what the hell?
Yeah.
And he said to me, he was like, you've only known sincere religious people.
Right.
And that's very unique.
Right.
Like all the imams and the aunties and stuff in my life, because they're all converts.
Yeah.
They're all people that like America beat them
They
up.
had enough of that. Yeah.
Capitalism, white men, whatever,
Yeah.
you know what I'm saying? America beat us all up. And so it was like, this is our chance to re-envision it all, reimagine it all. But damn, it just doesn't have to. That's not everybody's experience.
It's not everyone's thing, but I also too.
And I'm sorry, man, but
Yeah.
people that are feeling the type of despair,
Yeah.
and the people that are feeling like no matter what, I can never be good enough for my family, my community, my whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Like that needs to be acknowledged.
Yeah.
Like the healing power of just acknowledging that, like when you're in that, you don't see you want to believe it's there, but you're not actually holding it.
Yeah.
You're not tasting it.
Yeah.
But you believe it's there. It makes total sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, it's funny because we kind of ended the third season with this, what felt to me was like kind of what the whole show was building to. It was just building to a moment of the whole family simultaneously realizing that, you know, they've been sitting in the margin of shame and they kind of step towards the light, you know, and obviously like, you know, really through a you know, that drawing that's like people think success looks like, you know, it's like a straight arrow up, but it's really, you know, and it's like a bunch of jumbled lines and then finally the arrow. So it's the most jumbled line possible, but you know, they all kind of have this really sincere moment and you know, in a way, I think it's the, you know, for me, it's my favorite sequence of the show. It's like the last 10 minutes of our third season, and it's what I think the character's kind of been like looking for. You know, I always felt like he started with faith as this aspirational thing, and then he has this relationship with the sheikh that is really performative religion. It's like he's kind of trying to just step into it in the front way, but the back end of it is totally, you know, not there for him. And then, you know, then he kind of drops faith almost, but then he realizes it gets so low that, you know, it's that thing where you're so on the other end of it that you realize, no, that's the truth. And so it's kind of this moment where he finally realizes the truth in a true manner, which was something that was really exciting for me to get to with the show. I think, you know, to your point, for people who have an entry point that's similar to the character, I think it really resonated with them. Yeah. And for people who don't, there really isn't much else out there at the moment, but I don't believe that's going to be true even next year, and I don't believe that's going to be true in 5 years, and I think that you know, and I don't think it's going to be like gate kept out of existing because it's positive, or gate kept out of existing because it is, you know, beautiful, you know, and showing a beautiful depiction. I don't think that that's true. I think if it's at the right quality bar, then it will cut through.
Like I said, like I watched The Sopranos.
Yeah.
And like there's this ongoing thing where like they put a character, like so Dr. Melfi's ex-husband is like this like super pro-Italian dude who's always talking about how much he hates mafia stuff.
Yeah.
Because clearly in like for David Chinese or whatever his name is, that it clearly in his community, in the Italian American community, he's always hearing people be like, "You're making us look horrible. You're making us look bad.
You're perpetuating
what
the mob
about
thing."
And like it shows up in the show so much.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Over and over again, this depiction of Italian Americans as thugs and da 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 da. You know what I mean? And there's always all these conversations and stuff. And I know that while he's making some of the illest TV of all time, you know what I mean? Some of the dopest TV of all time, like he's constantly having to do that.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And every time that came up, I thought about you.
Yeah. That's so funny.
Because I'm just like, man, this is something that in any community, if you tell any version of a story, there's going to be a whole other side of it.
Yeah, of course.
Part of what we're dealing with here is this incredible divide.
Yeah, I mean,
between the people who converted to Islam and the people who came to America.
And, dude, there's so little that I know too. I mean, I know the names. I know Word, I know Elijah. I know all these names. But I don't like. You're referencing stuff that I don't know. Yeah, like it's not my experience at all. And I think like the things that I go out of my way to get knowledge about, even if I think about what I need to learn. Yeah, you know, I'm like reading Ghazali, or I'm kind of reading like, you know, just stuff on the Sufi path, right? Where it's like, it's almost weird that you have such a different reference point that currently isn't even in my aspiration to even know, right? Because it's like, it's so outside of my experience, you know. But if you tell me, yo, you got to know this, I'll go at it, you know. But it's so, you know what I mean? Yeah.
And that's part of what's causing this,
right?
You know what I'm saying? Is because like these two communities don't know each other very well.
No.
At all.
You
know what I'm saying? I was just speaking. I was invited to Duke University by Dr. Mona, who like brought me there to speak. And at Duke, she reached out to the like historic Black mosque. Yeah. And she built and like worked with them and brought them in and built in the library of Duke University this. Like right when you walk in the door, it's like part museum exhibit, part like art installation, where there's like all these things from the Al-Razak Islamic Center, and she did that, and then she invited me to come and talk. So I'm talking and I'm like, yeah, you know, and I'm just being really real about the fact that I'm from my perspective about how like, yeah, the Muslims that came here didn't respect us, and like they didn't acknowledge these Black Muslims that did all this stuff. And so the very last day we were together, and she paid me a lot, and like, you know what I'm saying, all this stuff, the very last day we were together, she's like, I'm so happy that you tell but she's like, but I did bring you here, and I did build this exhibit, and you know what I mean? So it's just not true of everybody, but she's like, I know that's your, you know what I mean?
It's your experience.
And I just, again, had to be like, okay. Yeah.
You're right. Yeah.
True. Yeah.
I mean, the thing is though, man, like the talking about despair. I mean, like there's a lot of like we're surrounded by a lot of despair everywhere, and I can't help but think about what you were talking about earlier when you said, you know, there's the spiritual heart conversations. Yeah. And then they, you know, if they're here, you know, like you on one end of the spectrum, and then slowly you track over to just all ego on the other end of the spectrum, right? And ego being just people are just talking about ideas and rules and points with just fire behind them. Yeah. You know, I've been feeling this thing where it's like, look, it's a really tricky place that, you know, that I think Muslims, especially like, let's say Muslims in America, are in, because everything is so political and everything is really, you know, even you were talking about the thing with Dave and like the, you know, what people say about him when he'll, you know, say stuff about LGBT communities, and, you know, that's all like because everyone's in pain. Right. So even with something with the show, it's like everyone's in a lot of pain. So it's like everyone has their agenda of what they think medicine should be. And so when you look at it that way too, you know, for me, I always have way more empathy for anyone who's critical of something that I said, because I'm like, well, this person is looking for medicine, you know, and I don't have the one that they need, that they're looking for. But it really makes me feel like, you know, I just wish that there was more in our communities publicly, just the bat signal of just love, and the bat signal of we love you. Like, I don't care.
Yeah.
I don't care. I don't care what, you know, we can get into like logistics and lifestyle and rules and all that later. But like, you know, if you come to the mosque, we love you.
Yeah.
I don't need, you know what I mean? I don't need to like kick you out before you've even walked in because there's certain discrepancy. You know, people's just basic needs are so not met that I kind of feel like we're continually in this conversation where we're like talking about like what rims a car should have, and you open up the hood and there's not even an engine in it. You know, and everyone's like, but the rims need to look like this, and it's got to have snow tires. And it's like, guys, the engine's missing. It's been missing for like decades. Can we work on that part? Can we connect the love part and then circle back around to talk about all the other stuff?
And that, what you're describing, it has been my experience with the Muslims. My experience was that loving. But I'm saying this is like a hole in the wall mosque that other people don't come and visit. You know what I mean? It's like all a very specific community from a very specific experience. You know what I mean?
But there's also a lot
I knew they didn't like that. Imam Warthi Muhammad. Like the last time I saw him, we were in Chicago at a Iman event. And I got up and did my thing, and like Malcolm X's daughter introduced me, and like I did this whole thing, and my music was full of cursing and stuff like that. And Imam Muhammad was like, it's so good to see you. And he met my wife. We had just, and he told my wife, he's like, you got a good man here, but you already know that. That's the day that my wife decided to become Muslim. He was like, you got a good man. You already know that. And somebody introduced me to him and was like, this is one of our acclaimed rappers. And he goes, him? That ain't no rapper. That's my boy. That's my boy. And he like hugged me, and he was like, man, I love you. I'm so happy to see you, and all of this stuff. And he was like, you know, I love your rap, like how older people say, like your rap. I love your rap, but I don't love all the words you're saying in your rap. He's like, it feels like you're talking about beautiful things, but you're talking about it with ugly words. And he's like, and you know, you just don't have to do it that way. And I gave him my explanation, and he goes, okay, well, you know when you're in your Islamic character and when you're not, and you know it better than me. And I was just like, oh man, I kind of just wanted to argue with you.
You're like, wait, I was waiting to debate.
You know what I mean? But so this is what I'm saying. My experience is always like, we love you. There's nothing you can do about it.
But look, just to say something though, in terms of like the you know, you're talking a lot about being surrounded by the convert experience. Converts get a level of unconditional love that people born into the religion don't get in the same way, because our thing from the beginning is, you hit the jackpot. You've had the faith from the beginning. You should know better. I don't care how old you are. You should know better. You know, like it's always built in. It's like, you're lucky. People don't have the faith. They don't have this. I think when converts are approached, it's kind of like there is a wider unconditional
I'm talking about other American. I'm talking about like in the American convert community, I've always been loved. To be honest, so my thing is like when I'm with people that come from traditionally Islamic lands, whatever, you know, immigrants. So I feel fetishized and tokenized. You know what I'm saying? I don't feel loved. Especially if somebody is like, especially this person will just be talking to me, and then somebody else will be like, he's famous. And then suddenly it's like, hey, can I? Like suddenly they're interested.
Of course.
And they give me this like fake VIP treatment. Where they're like, you're gonna sit in the good chair, and you're gonna sit at the head table, and But then it's like when it comes to like what I'm actually feeling or whatever.
No, and I know so many people who've converted, and they're like, you know, I do it, and then I can't find community, and it's hard, you know, and that's really real. And I think the piece that I'm trying to hone in on, maybe poorly, but is like, okay, I'll tell you this. When I was a kid, I remember I used to wish that I actually really loved the faith, especially prayer. And I was like, okay, this is a big part of my life. But I know it just feels so much more sincere than anything. And at the same time, I wish that I had just been born white. I was like, oh, I wish I was like William or Michael for a stint, where I could just do like William Michael stuff, and then like become Muslim, and then be like, oh, that's back when I was,
right.
you know, like now I'm Abdul Rahman, you know, now,
and they will make you the sheikh,
you know,
by
like,
the way. They will make you the.
It's like now I have an Arab name, and now I have, you know, because I was like, oh, you just had this like carte blanche, and you got to do Christmas, and you got to try bacon, and do all this, and then now you just get to like turn all that off, you know, then you turn that all off, and then now you're just like the you know, now you're with everyone, you know, and I remember being like, oh man, that's a sweet deal. Anytime I'd see it, you know, like just a convert deal, I'd be like, oh dude, you got
the best of both worlds,
bro. You got to be William. You know, I know you're saying you're Hamza, but man, you killed it. You know, you got that clean on-off switch. Yeah. And then when you grow up with it, it's
you touched all kind of boobs, and nobody was mad.
No one said anything. You didn't know better. You know. But then you're like sitting there,
and it's all washed away at the day of your shahada,
bro.
Yeah.
You're like, man, I've known better since I was, 6.
Damn it.
Man, this is a big weight.
Why do I gotta know better?
The pain of knowing, you know, and so, you know, there's so much shame, you know, that comes with that. Yeah.
SubhanAllah, man. Thank you.
Thanks for this. Is amazing. It's such a great way to see you. Yeah, man. I love you so much.
I promise you, I didn't intend to like bring here and just talk about
This is the best.
Like whatever. Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
Yeah, man. MashaAllah. And yeah, thank you, brother.
Bro, thank you, man.
MashaAllah.
So fun.
Special thanks to my man Ramy, Youssef, for being so generous with his time. I came away from this conversation with several points and several things that I had realized. Number one, Ramy and our relationship with Islam is so different. With me as a convert and, us as people that discovered this religion and realized like, man, I didn't even know this thing existed. What if there really is a religion that you can believe that I believe is true? I hear other people talk about religion, and a lot of times they're saying, well, it's good to believe in something. It's good to have something to connect to hope. But I know a lot of my friends in other religions, and maybe even some of my friends in Islam, but I don't know. But it's like, well, I don't necessarily believe it completely, but it's good to have a religion. And you don't have to believe all the details of it to value it. Well, I believe in this. And the people that I rock with, both converts and people that are born into Muslim families, we believe in this thing completely and sincerely. And to some people that feels like fanaticism, but you don't know the religion, and unless you've experienced it, you don't know. And so, but what I do acknowledge is that for people who discover this religion and then enter into it, and I entered into it with a community of converts, that even the people that have been Muslim for several generations, their families converted, and so it's understood that I'm relating to this religion based on the message of Islam. And the message of Islam is one of aspiration, inspiration, of dedication, of genuine ushering and developing into being our truest selves. And the relationship, the experience that I've had with it has been extremely affirming. And it's been a experience, and a communal experience that like, it's okay and you're okay. And it's going to be okay. And your mistakes are part of the journey. Like your mistakes on a certain level, yes, I'm responsible for them, but my mistakes are also divinely written, and they're part of your journey. And your mistakes don't mean that something's wrong with you. Your mistakes are part not only of your humanity, but of your relationship with God. And so you are not your mistakes, but your mistakes are part of your road and your relationship with the divine. And that's very different from people whose family sometimes came from a place that's been Muslim for 500 years. You know what I'm saying? It was hundreds of years before Egypt, where Ramy comes from, became a majority Muslim country. You know what I'm saying? But for his family, it's a different thing. They're coming to America to try to have a better life. And Islam is something that maybe, there's different levels of people even knowing their religion. A lot of people, if you live in a Muslim country, you might not really dig deep into studying theology and practice and spirituality because it's just in the water. It's just part of who you are. And it's a well that you always have access to. You can always go drink from whenever you want. As Muslims who convert in the West, like we almost all have to become our own imams so that we can live our Muslim life because it can't be taken for granted. So we're studying it in a way that maybe the families that come from other places, they don't study. The other part is that those families are like, we don't know, we want to hold on to Islam, but there's a deep fear that like we want you to hold on to your Islam and we don't even necessarily know how to give you that. But we know that the West doesn't affirm us. The West is against religion in general because of their own relationship with their own religions. And so there's this deep fear that like, don't lose yourself here in the West. And so it's a different relationship. And it's like, yeah, I understand, and also the parents don't understand what the children are going through. So there's this entirely different relationship with Islam. The other part that I really, really get, that's really so deeply beneficial for me, is that despair is not something that I've ever experienced in my religion because I've been taught that my own weaknesses are part of my humanity and part of my relationship with Allah. It doesn't mean that I'm not Muslim. Like my own inconsistencies, my own, I say one thing, I do another. My own lack of discipline, my own weaknesses. Sometimes sometimes I'm going to have contradictions. Sometimes I'm just going to straight up do the wrong thing, knowing it. Other times I'm going to not realize it. But these are all part of my humanity and part of my relationship with God. So despair isn't something that I've experienced, but it is part of the human experience. This feeling of like, am I ever going to get it? Is it possible that I can't ever live up to this? That I can't ever really be a Muslim? That's an experience that people really have. And all of those and when you're in something like that, it feels like you're all alone in it. And so Ramy, maybe it's safe to say, is delivering this show as somebody who is wrestling with a deep sense of despair. And when you're in despair, it doesn't feel like there's a lifeline for you. And so for people who are also sharing that sense of despair, it's probably very, very helpful for them to know that the first step is you're not alone in feeling that way. And I've been that for people. My music has been that for people. And I've made music that maybe is haram. I've made music that a lot of Muslims didn't feel good about. I've been Ramy. Some of my older music is me wrestling and struggling with the fact that like I didn't have a community for a while. And when I entered into hip hop, I was at a period where my teacher, Imam Warithuddin Muhammad, had passed away and my relationship with my community wasn't strong. And so I was cursing a lot in my music. And there were Muslims who were like, oh, Brother Ali, they knew me as an imam. Like I was an imam of a mosque. And then I started my career in a time when my relationship with the community wasn't strong. And I was cursing like crazy. And so there are people that are like, oh, this Brother Ali that we know from speaking at conferences and leading weddings and leading services and things, oh, he's a rapper now. And then they put the music on and I'm cussing like a sailor. And they had moments of like, what is this? But they aren't there when my music is speaking to people who, tell me that they were headed down the road of suicide. And I know that Ramy's show has been that for people. And so I'm happy. I'm extremely happy and grateful for this conversation. I feel like I understand now. And I'm okay with the fact that like, maybe I'll go watch the show now. I don't know. I've gone in and out of it. It's not that I've never seen the show. You know what I'm saying? I've gone in and out of it. But I'm very, very grateful for this. And I'm grateful to Ramy for being so beautiful and so giving and generous. Grateful to you for listening. Thanks to everybody that's part of this podcast in any way. Zakat Foundation, BetterHelp. Thank you to all the people that are in the caravan. Thank you to Mansour Panawala, Amna Mirza, Darian Washington, and Last Word. All those people were really big helps when we started the podcast. We go through this thing week in and week out with me and BK1. BK is my man, my partner in Travelers Media. He's the producer of the podcast. And it's a production of Travelers Media. We love you all. We appreciate you all. Make sure to come back week after week. We got over 75 episodes. This might be the 77th episode of this podcast, I think. So there's a lot there and there's a lot more to come. We love you. We appreciate you. We're on this journey together. Make sure to go to brotherali.com, go to the join section, get down with the caravan. That's how you really support this show and keep it going. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.